What's up, YouTube? I'm Robert, and this is the B1KER Bar Podcast live stream, episode 80. Thank you, everybody that is here. All of you. I don't know if you're here right now or you're listening later on a podcast or you're watching this on YouTube. No matter how you're getting here, I appreciate it. I really do. This is episode 80, and today we're going to have a guy on from a company called Dialed Health, which I'm telling you, this is pretty cool. And I wrote in the show more before the show notes or whatever you want to call it, right before I started. Essentially, it's a gym that focuses on riders. And I think that's really important because you could go get a personal trainer, and if they don't know what muscle groups to really work to help you out with your riding, it's probably not going to be as beneficial as it could be. I mean, it'll be beneficial, but not as good as it can be. So anyways, we'll bring him on in just a minute. I want to tell you guys a couple of things. First things first, if you guys want to help out the channel, bottom line, go to Patreon and pledge something. Whether it's $1, you get some coupons. It's $5, you get some stickers. It's $25, you get a big box of swag. Whatever it is, do that. Support the channel. It really helps because this stuff isn't as easy and cheap as I thought. I did my taxes the other day, and it's stupid how much money I spent. Definitely running in the negative right now. So if you guys could help out, I would really appreciate it. If you don't want to help out financially like that, you can do things like this. Go to where you listen to your podcast and write a review for the podcast, or hit the thumbs up button, or hit the subscribe button, because those things make me happy. If you want to have some extra content, you don't want to pay for it, that's sweet too. I get it. I don't pay for a lot of the stuff that I watch. So go to Instagram at B1KERB1 or the Facebook page if you're over 40, and go ahead and give me a follow. And maybe someday, if I get enough followers, I'll go do a TikTok. You guys can watch me like shave my beard or something. I don't know what they do on TikTok, all these young kids nowadays. So anyways, today's going to be a shorter episode because this guy's got a set of twins and a toddler at home, and his time is very valuable. So we're going to go ahead and pop back over to him. I am like drawing a blank too on it's Derek, right?
Yeah. Everyone just knows me by Dialed Health now. I've pretty much fully let my identity become that.
Right. I totally understand because I'm biker from here on out as well. So it is what it is, right? So it came to me at the last second, even before I threw it up on the screen. I was like, Derek, that's what it is. How's it going, man?
It's going great. And yeah, I didn't do you any favors because even when I entered this chat, I just wrote Dialed Health instead of Derek. So sorry for that. But yeah, it's going great, man. And thanks for doing the shorter episode. Like I said, these twins are kicking our butt. I can't even lie about it. And nighttime is such a mission that I told my wife if I wasn't home, my wife told me if I wasn't home by 7, this was a no-go. So thanks for making it happen, man.
Yeah, no problem, dude, for sure. So they're pretty young. Are they like the get up early, or are they the sleep in kind of kids?
Well, the twins are only 6 weeks old. So they're wake you up every 3 hours kind of kids.
Yeah, those kids are awesome.
Yeah. my toddler, though, he's not quite 2. He'll be 2 in June, but he sleeps great. And I think it's because he's so physical throughout the day. Yeah. I'm super active with him. My dad and my parents are actually, when they watch him, are super physical. Like, we're taking him to parks all day. So he just passes out at night. He's a great sleeper. So we're lucky there. And I think the twins will be fine. They're really good babies, but dude, they're just little infants, man. Yeah, I mean, they're just, it's just
that time goes by quick though too, man.
Right.
I'll tell you, my kids, when they were young, when they were toddlers, they would usually, they went to bed at like 7 o'clock at night, but they got up at like 5 a.m. on the dot every day, except for when you were counting on them to wake you up for something that you were trying to do. Like say, hey, I'm going to go skiing tomorrow. I'm not going to set an alarm because the kids always wake up. That's the day that they sleep until 8. And you're like,
dude, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So,
up until my twins were born, my son woke up at 7 a.m. like clockwork. That was his time to wake up. And we put him to bed a little bit later. Yeah. And it was awesome for me because I'm kind of a morning guy. I've become that since becoming a trainer, really. And I knew I had, if I woke up at 5, woke up at 4:30, I knew I had a couple hour window to work. it's like the only time the house is quiet. So up until my twins were born, I had the sickest morning routine, coffee, Bible, manifestation, freaking meditation, getting my day organized, like incredible steps to just map out your day. And then I would get a bunch of social media work in, and that just got taken away for me, which has been throwing me for a loop. So I can't imagine him waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah. It was rough.
No,
and I'm not a morning person. I'm a night person. Even now, I don't go to bed before midnight ever. So
wow, are you serious?
Yeah. So like back then I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. I would go in. I remember when my son was real little, I would like had his room like totally baby proof. So I could go in there and just like lay on the floor and he could like crawl over me and I would sort of sleep, sort of be awake while I could pay attention that he wasn't like choking or something. I wasn't
smart. He's alive.
Yeah, dude, he made it. So apparently I did something right. So what's going on, man? What's this dialed health thing? I gave you like the little intro myself, but how is it that you explain what you do?
Yeah. So dialed health is strength training for cyclists. Basically it's movements that you would find in a normal, I guess, gym setting. We like to use traditional movements, also a lot of functional stuff. It's kind of a, buzzword right now in fitness. But really the thing that we've changed is the volume and how often you're training. So really it came down to finding a methodology that synced up with riders' schedules, because we all know that, okay, you want strong legs, you want a strong core, and you should probably be doing some stretching to get out of pain. But how do you fit that all in a week when you're someone whose main objective is really to get your rides in? And that was my job, was to try and figure out, okay, how do we take all the best things from training and get it into a packaged program or workout for someone to implement really steadily, year round, and to not have it be this thing where you occasionally strength train and you're so sore your next ride sucks, or you're kind of in and out of it. So yeah, basically dialed health is strength training for cyclists. It's for people who want longevity, want to get out of pain, and it's all online now, which is insane, Oh
wow, that's crazy, huh?
Yeah.
I bet you didn't think that whenever you first started. You're like, all right, I'm gonna open up this gym, I'm gonna get all this equipment, and then nobody's gonna come. I'm gonna do it all online.
Yeah. No, I didn't. It's crazy though. So I've been a personal trainer for almost 10 years now. And even when I started training, I had left downhill racing and I didn't intend on coming back into the bike industry at all. And it was like when enduro started getting popular, I felt like I had some unfinished business, started racing enduro. And then during that process is when I really realized how much confliction there was between the quote unquote perfect gym strength training I knew and was doing at the time and training people and riding schedules. So basically that led me to this. But I had the studio opened after had people in it for a couple years before everything went down last year. And thankfully, dude, I had already kind of hit the ceiling of what I could do production wise in person in the studio. And I was starting to put out PDFs online that people could buy, downloadables. And then I had the member website actually before everything went down last year with COVID. And so I was like kind of set up for it. And I was slowly easing that direction just because I knew that I couldn't go any further with the way I was doing it. I've never wanted to have multiple gym studios or have all these things to manage in that way. And the online was super intriguing. So as tough as it was last year to be forced to fully commit to the online, I was already kind of set up to do it. And it was really just like ripping off the Band-Aid. It hurt. It really hurt. I mean, I'd spent so many years getting my in-person business to where it was, to have it just taken from me was really difficult, but it was good to push through it, man. And now we're in a good spot and I'm excited to grow this thing.
You know what it reminds me of? I was watching this thing yesterday about, I don't know, do you like the History Channel?
I never watched the History Channel. I
love the History Channel. I don't know, man, it's my thing. And they had a show on there. It's called The Food That Built America. And they were talking about Domino's. And basically when they started, they had this like little tiny shop and they had more business than they had seats. And they were like, they couldn't get a bigger store. So they came up with the idea of like, hey, let's deliver this stuff to the people's houses. right? And now they can still have a little tiny store and not have a big footprint and a bunch of rent to pay, and they can now service more customers,
Wow.
and it's kind of like the same thing is what you're explaining, is like, hey, I can still have the same footprint that I have now, but now with all this online training, I mean, you could get way more customers than you would be able to like physically go train yourself by that. So that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. And it's worked out to have the studio because I did have a lot of people wonder if I would keep it when I made that transition. But the truth is, for one, I'm sitting in it now. It's become an office for me because I am doing so much more computer work, but also this is where I film all the content. And I have this controlled space where I could bring in videographers, I can bring in photographers, and I can, dance around without my shirt on and no one's going to stop me. So it's great.
Are you planning, once all the kind of COVID stuff blows over, to have, people back into the physical space again, or you're thinking you're going to stay like 100% virtual at that point?
Ideally, I would stay 100% virtual. I love to know that I could bring people back in if I needed to. Not to say it's like a plan B or something, but the demand is there. To be honest, especially since gyms have closed down, I've never had so much interest in people coming in and training since all this stuff started, which is very ironic. It's like it was dead for 2 months, and then all of a sudden people are shooting me that text like, hey, on the lowdown, can I come into your studio? And it was really hard for me, especially in that transition, because just financially to commit to the online. And so now that it's at a place that it is, I had a few high-level athletes in here training still a little bit. But even those sessions have stopped because I'm so focused on online. And really, since the twins were born, my time is so pressed. I'm actually at the point now where with the online, where I kind of was with the in-person training, where I just like can't do it all myself anymore. So I'm bringing on my first employee right now. I have some other people in the back end coming to support the business. So it's in a real place of growth right now, which is really crazy. And it's wild. It's just so much learning and adapting. It's kind of exhausting, dude. All the adapting has been so exhausting. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Change isn't easy. That's for sure. Especially when it's like things that aren't in your wheelhouse. And I'm sure that, doing video production wasn't like something that you were already well adept to doing. You know what I mean? So I'm just making the assumption. Who knows? Maybe you were freaking outside, part-time movie maker. I don't know.
No, to be honest, I am not a technology guy. I'm not at all, man. I've always, like, even to this day with Dialed Health, I wait until I need to know how to do it, and then I figure it out. And I've been lucky to have a really good freelance workers in my corner. So a good videographer, good photographers, and I can hire out the work. My web team behind the website, they are legends. So it's really thanks to them, because I try and hit on the things I do well. But now all these new angles of the business are being introduced because of the volume and the traffic, where I'm like, okay, so do I learn how to do that? Because it would be valuable for me to know, but then again, it's going to take away from what I'm already doing well, and I can't do both. So it's funny to pick and choose,
man. That's what it is. So it's like, what's it worth? Is it really worth your time to learn how to do that, or is it worth your time to keep doing what you're good at and pay somebody else? My assumption is more than likely it's probably worth the time to have somebody else do it for you at this point. When you're first starting, it of course it's cheaper then. It makes more sense, because it's like for me, like starting a YouTube channel, you're not going to go out and hire somebody to edit your videos when you don't have any subscribers, right? You know what I mean? But by the time you get to like a BKXE or a Seth spot, it's like, yeah, of course I'm going to hire somebody, because it doesn't make any sense for me to do that. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. And I got to give you a shout out. I mentioned it before we started, but you inspired me, because even the post you did to promote this episode, like I said, the organization, the email you sent me, how easy it was for me to connect with you on what we're streaming now. I mean, you did an awesome job, dude. Seriously.
Right on, man.
And even when I saw that post, I was like, it was another thing for me where I'm like, I got to learn Photoshop. And I don't because I know photographers and I just shoot them over what I need. But that's an example where I saw what you're doing and I'm like, he's crushing it, man. I got to step it up.
I appreciate that, man. It's hard for me to take the compliment, because it's like, I don't know, man. When you're a person that's like pretty driven and I don't know how else to say it, but you're always looking at who's better than you and shooting for that, or at least I am, because
Yeah.
that's what keeps you driving. Because otherwise, you're going to be like, oh, I'm great, I won't do anything. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so like when people compliment me, I'm always like, yeah, that's awesome, but look at these guys, they're doing way better than me, you know. And so it's hard to take the compliment, but I do truly appreciate that. That's nice for you to throw the kind words out there.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you was, you mentioned earlier that you were a downhill racer, and I think that most people probably don't know. So let's figure out, what is it that makes your expertise good for being a trainer of cyclists? Obviously, you have a history. So what's the history?
Yeah. So thanks for asking. And I got to say, it's strange at this point that people don't know I was a downhill racer, because up until very recently, where my audience has grown, it was people I had connections with from my downhill racing days. Funny enough. Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy to see downhill take on its own thing, and people just see me on my road bike now. But yeah, so basically my start of racing was when I was like 14, downhill racing, Sea Otter Classic, Norba Nationals. I mean, I was just fully in it. That's all I cared about. And I was really on the fast track to be just a downhill racer, and had insane sponsorships and support, and came through, basically raced downhill from, I want to say like 2005 to 2011. And 2011 was the time where I was racing pro, and I started pulling away from the sport. And that's when I became a personal trainer. And there were quite a few reasons, for that. But I was really, it was funny because all the training that I had learned through the teams I was on, I was riding for Yeti at the time, and they had trainers and nutritionists. And that was the one thing that really stuck with me, even when I fell out of my riding and racing. And so I got to a point where I just committed to becoming a trainer, because I was like, you know what, this is like the only thing I'm really even doing right now. Seriously, I have a part-time job, living at home, and I'm just working out in my dad's garage.
Right.
So it made sense for me to jump on that and commit to it. And then basically after, I want to say like 3 or 4 years of training, I just got the bug again to start riding. And then of course, all that unfinished business with racing comes back. That's when enduro was getting popular. And so I did a few seasons racing enduro. And it was funny because at the time I was a full-time in-person trainer, so doing one-on-one training. And then I had moved back up north, and I started doing all sorts of stuff, boot camp classes, small group, really any type of training with people in person, from one-on-one all the way to huge classes of, like, I kid you not, 70 people. I started doing everything in between. Yeah. And it was amazing for skill building, but also I'm trying to ride at the same time and race. And for a couple of years, that was my main focus. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I need to go all in on my training. And that's when Dialed Health really started. So basically, the credibility, I guess, comes from the history of being fully committed to gravity racing for so many years, being fully committed to the general health and fitness industry for so many years, and then spending this time almost in limbo, just trying to figure it out for so long until I finally did. And, that's where I'm at now. And thankfully, because of the online, the amount of testimonials I have and the amount of results you get is just insane. So it almost continues to reaffirm, it's not like you're just looking for confirmation bias, because of course, my programs aren't a fit for absolutely everybody, but it's pretty incredible to see what kind of impact it's had on people, man. It's freaking rad.
So are your program is your program just working out and how to do that, or is there diet in there as well, or what all do you address?
Yeah, we address diet as well. So I don't do custom meal plans for people. To just jump into the diet thing real quick, I coach people through food tracking, which is basically downloading an app like MyFitnessPal. You buy a food scale, some measuring cups, you're scanning barcodes, you're throwing your chicken on a scale before you put it on your plate. And by the way, I want to know about your weight loss process. So we're going to get into that right after this. I got to hear about it. But yeah, I coach people through food tracking, which is just, in my opinion, the best way to approach nutrition, because it just teaches you so much. You can, and then when you go into riding nutrition, your ability to look at a goo packet or a Cliff Bar and know exactly what you need for any given ride, it's so much more clear. And because you understand what 24 grams of carbohydrates mean. So I have resources on my website, and I help people find their own basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories they burn at rest, help them align their goals and give them some target numbers. But I don't go much further than that. It's kind of, to be honest, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. There's a lot of people who get a lot of info that hit me up pretty regularly. But then as far as my strength and mobility training, I have preset programs and preset workouts that are all kind of within my boundaries of training. And to give you an idea what that is, basically, it's like, I wanted people who ride their bike a lot to be able to do this consistently. And I know that you can't just do CrossFit, every day, or you can't just do a bodybuilding program or a powerlifting program. Even though I genuinely love all that stuff, I've done all that stuff, but it's like, if biking is your number one focus and that's where you want to be at your best, what you need to do is like find this minimum dose that you can do consistently. So I had to build the boundary of that. And basically it's 2 total body strength sessions per week. And you want to target the 7 effective movements. So to have a balanced program within those 2, it could be as little as like an hour and a half of training a week. But you want to make sure you get a knee dominant movement, which is like a step up or a lunge, a hip dominant movement, which is a squat or a deadlift. You want a core movement. So this could be a plank or like a Palloff press or some cable rotation. And then you want a horizontal pull. So like a row, horizontal push, like a push up, and then vertical push and pull. So like a pull up and a shoulder press. And basically within your 2 total body sessions, if you hit all of those movements at least once, you'll know you'll have a balanced program. And because of the 2 sessions per week, it addresses this thing called super compensation. And that's kind of like your recovery curve. And basically if you looked up super compensation on a graph, on Google, you'd see a graph, and it shows you basically when you have this initial training session, your performance declines because you're at a weakened state, your body's broken down, you're trying to recover. And then as a couple of days go on, you should recover beyond that training level of the initial session, because hopefully you got a little better from it. And if you don't catch the next workout on that curve, which is the super compensation curve, then most likely you might not make that much progress, because if you're waiting a week between strength training sessions, there's a good chance that curve is going to come back down to your baseline. And I'm not saying you're going to not make any progress, because riding's physical if you're riding in between. But it's going to be very slow and almost, non-existent. So that's why 2 sessions really is the minimum. So it was kind of like, that's the minimum dose. This is for high volume riders. And then let's get real. Like, a lot of people ride their mountain bike once a week, but it's their favorite sport. They just have a lot of life in the way. Those people can do 3 sessions a week, maybe 4. So like, I started creating different programs based on equipment you have, based on, how frequent your riding is, what your goals are. I have some cyclists that hit me up and say, yo, I really do want to put on upper body mass. So I made a program for that. So there are options and things it caters to, but they all kind of are under that umbrella of what that mythology is, because I want anyone who rides a bike.
When I'm trying to put on upper body mass, I just drink a shit ton of beer, dude. It works every time.
Yeah. Wrong kind of mass. Wrong kind of mass. I should be more clear. So yeah, that's kind of how the whole training philosophy works. And then really, man, I'm just doing it with everybody, and I'm posting a lot about it. If you follow me on Instagram,
interesting, man.
Yeah.
I was listening, like to the different exercises or muscle groups and stuff like that you're talking about. And generally speaking, I'm pretty much doing everything that you said. And I'm doing that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I'm riding as much as I possibly can. And sometimes it's 7 days a week, and sometimes it's 5 days a week. I'd say at the least it's 4 because of weather. But I think if anything, I'm probably overtraining. But I have this there's no science in anything that I believe in. So it's just me just connecting my own dots and like, oh yeah, that's the way the world works. Sometimes I'm like really wrong, and sometimes I'm on to something. But for me, I've always had this idea that if you're like, your body's this machine that adapts to anything that you throw at it. Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're doing a certain amount of activity on a regular basis, eventually your body's going to be like, oh, that's the norm. Like, if you were, a hunter gatherer and you had to get up every day at sunrise and you went out and you walked 15 miles until you caught something every day, like your body's like, oh, okay, that's what we do. If you're like sit on the couch guy and Netflix and binge all day and you get up and do 15 miles once a week, you're like, oh, that sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
it's funny because I take it to extremes when I hear that, because I think that you are partially correct. But really, it's like your adaptation may not mean optimal. Like you said, if you're sitting on the couch Netflixing, you're not going to have an optimal thing. If you get to a point where you're overtraining, you may be fit and your body may have adapted to that, but you could be extremely flatlined because it's in such a reserve mode because it knows it's overtraining that you're never going to really peak and become optimal. So sorry, I had to interject in there for a second, but I think that you definitely are onto something.
And I think there's part of what I say as well is that I have to explain is I oversimplify almost everything in my life. And there's a lot of things where, I've gone from, having pretty like beach body at one point to being extremely fat to beach body. Like I've gone back and forth a bunch of times. And I think one of the main reasons that I do that is because I just have this like extreme kind of personality where it's like, I'm not going to do shit or I'm going to do everything. And in those times when I've learned how to be fit, I feel like I've learned how to be fit productively. Right. And because of that, I also, that like feeds me whenever I'm being lazy. Cause I'm like, oh yeah, it only takes like 4 months to lose that weight. So who gives a shit, dude? And we can sit around for a while. You know what I mean? Like,
that's some crazy psychology right there.
Right. Whoa. Tell me about it. But I think what I was going to say though earlier about like me kind of oversimplifying things is over the time that I've been extremely physical or like fit through my life, I've definitely learned how to pay attention to my body, and I think that's one of those things that, man, there's not an easy way to like teach that to somebody. Like when you're doing some exercise and you're like, oh, that doesn't feel right. Like that's like, okay, chill out on that muscle group for a couple of days, or this is not normal sore that I feel today. I should probably not do anything because even though I want to, this is your body saying, hey dude, chill out, man. You're being stupid, And I think that, if you can learn how to pay attention to your body that way, then maybe there's some things that I'm doing that I'm really oversimplifying and just saying, oh, this is what I do all the time, but realistically, you definitely have to be paying attention to those things, or I know exactly what you're saying. Like you'll flatline, like, you won't be getting longer rides. You won't be getting stronger, and I think that at least for me right now, my goal is not to maintain. So my goal is to be getting stronger and to do more. So you definitely have to make sure you're paying attention to that stuff.
Yeah. It takes a lot of experience and real genuine. You have to genuinely want to be intuitive and to listen to your body, because it's so easy to ignore yourself and it's so easy to go through the motions that it just takes intention to actually stop and feel and think and interpret what's really happening and do that process over and over again. Because even when I've taught literally probably over 1,000 people how to do a deadlift, and I still take myself through the checklist when I do it. And that's how much you have to be intentional, because, I feel like I've mastered that, but I still have to remind myself, okay, hips back, brace my core, now breathe, pick up the bar, tension, like all the steps, So hold on, I got to ask you this. So if you've been through that process a couple times and you find yourself having a more extreme personality on one side or another, one thing I've seen from a lot of people is that they have so much success at these periods of time where they're focused and committed like you are. And you're like, okay, I know that 4 months I can crush it and get back to where I'm at. But because that is such an extreme side of it, that it very quickly becomes something that doesn't feel like it could be lasting long term, or you may not take the steps back to maintenance where you can say, okay, I'm happy with where I'm at. Let's just dial it back a little bit and then get a little rest. And then let's hold it and try and make this the new norm. And opposed to really your norm is still the person who is heavier that put on the weight, and you're in this extreme phase right now, but you've never had that time to like settle into it. So as soon as you're done being focused, you completely revert back. So like what I would say to you really, even in this mode that you're in right now, would to really start to like consider that, like, give yourself a point where you can dial it back a little bit and make it your new baseline,
100%. I totally agree with you. For me, when the pendulum swings, it's not like that where it's on and off as much. It'll be, I get fit, I stay fit for a while, and let's just say it's like 5-6 years of being super fit or just maintaining, like, okay, I know where I'm at now. I can ride this much. I can work out this much. I can drink this much beer. I can eat this much pizza, and I can stay in this weight that I want to be. Right. But what I've noticed, and I'm 43 at this point. So, I mean, it's not like it's like 1 year I'm fat, 1 year I'm not, it's like 10 years of this and 5 years of this, and then 7 years of this. And you know what I mean? So,
gotcha. That's not as fast as I thought.
Yeah. But the thing that I've noticed when I'm looking back on my life, it's typically enough time has gone by that I forgot how bad it sucks to lose weight. That's the number one part. So it's like that enough time has gone by where I'm just remembering, oh, I lost 30 pounds that one time. It only took me like 3 months. Oh, I lost 50 pounds that one time. It only took me 6 months, so I'm only remembering that. I'm not remembering like how much work I had to put in for that amount of time for that to happen. Yes. And then the other thing that usually is like compiled along with that is 9 times out of 10, it's been some kind of injury. It's like, at one point I separated my shoulder and I couldn't ride for 6 months. So that was like my big part of my activity. I wasn't going to the gym because I'm like, whatever. And then I'm still just eating the same amount of crap and drinking the same amount of beer. And then maybe even more because now I don't feel good about myself. And I'm like, yeah, this is a good time. Screw it. And then I forgot how hard it is to lose weight. And I'm like, yeah, it'll only take 3 months. But then the other thing that I forget or that I haven't learned yet, and hopefully this go around I will, is, man, I'm getting older and my metabolism is not as good as it used to be. Like when I was in my 20s and I wanted to lose weight, I'd be like, I'm going to stop drinking on Tuesday and I'm going to drink the rest of the days of the week and I'll lose 10 pounds. You know what I mean? Like now I'm like, okay, I'm not drinking it all for 2 months. I'm not eating any crap. I'm not eating any sugar. I'm going to go to the gym. It's like, and you lost. So it's definitely interesting, seeing how that kind of plays out. But I want to mention, and I'm sure you could reiterate it in a much better way, how much of a difference that it makes to actually work out if you want to ride better. And I know myself and a lot of other people in the past that I've talked to always think like, oh, well, if I want to be a better rider, I just need to go freaking ride. And I can say without a doubt that I've done that a bunch of times, and it doesn't help as much as whenever I've decided, okay, now I'm going to start working out and like really getting that core strength strong, those like quick twitch muscles, like in ways that I'm not going to get out of riding. And all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, I'm like way faster.
Yeah. I mean, you got to ride to get faster. That is one thing that's true. I would never argue with someone about that. Yeah. And I understand why you get in this mode where you're having good rides and that's all you want to do. And you just want to keep on riding. You are maybe
fun, right.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But the truth is, when you are riding that frequently, there's a point where your body is going to start, like you said earlier, adapt to it, and it's going to adapt to everything. Right. So when you start adapting to riding more, it can be a very positive thing. Your tendons and ligaments, there could be certain structural integrity that gets, that's a bonus, and you get some stability out of it. But you also start really using those dominant muscles more and more and more. Things like your shoulders, your quads, all those like muscles on the front side of your body because you think you always have this downward pressure. When you're pedaling, it's just knee flexion. Knee flexion is your quad, so the top of your thigh that's doing that. For the most part, that's the dominant muscle group, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So your body just starts getting more and more reliant on those, and it starts slowly turning off the other muscles in your body. And even though those muscles aren't the dominant muscles, they're still working to stabilize and help really keep everything from going too far, aka, getting an injury because your quads are so overused and they get so tight and now your knee hurts. Or your shoulders and your chest get so tight that your shoulders start getting pulled forward, your back isn't as active, and then now you have a shoulder impingement. And those are the things that it's hard to teach people until they go through that process. And even when they're through that process, sometimes they won't admit that it wasn't because they strength trained, or it wasn't because of the lack of strength training. So I've been on every side of that with those conversations, but those are the biggest reasons, because like, even if you trained simply to keep your muscles active and balanced, like if you went in the gym and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this mobility routine and I'm going to do a few heavy rows, I'm going to do a couple of deadlifts and work on just all the muscles on the backside of my body, that alone, even if you didn't get that much stronger, if it just maintained your strength and kept those muscles active, they're going to fire while you're riding, and you're not going to have those compensation issues, potential injuries because of that. And also, you're just not going to have as much power when you don't use all of your muscle groups synergistically together. And that's why it's so important to do, I really train people to look at workouts like movements instead of like specific muscle groups. And when you start doing that and you start doing total body exercise, it links your whole body together. And if you don't get that connection, then, your body's going to forget it on the bike. It just is down the line.
Yeah. I try to do like some muscle groups together are my focus, but all the other things that I'm doing while I'm exercising I'm trying to get all over the place. And so let's say like Monday is like chest and tries, right? But while I'm doing that, it's like I kind of do like little sets of things. So it'll be like, let's just say a dumbbell bench press, and then some tricep kickbacks, and then some jumping jacks, and then some planks where I'm like, I don't know what they're called, where you're like bringing your knees up while you're planking. And then like maybe while I'm doing, I don't know, like, I know like when I do like curls, when I'm doing biceps, I'm actually doing lunges and then lifting my knee up. So I'm balancing on one leg, and then I'm doing my curl and then doing a lunge. So
cool.
So you're kind of like doing these things where you're hitting that the bicep is my group that day, or like my muscle that day, but it's like I'm trying to do all these other things that are a little bit more working all over the place. And I definitely, I feel like I'm at a spot right now where I need to change everything, because I know like there's a certain point where your body's like, okay, I'm used to this, dude. This is what you do. And I need to like confuse it. And so that's where I'm like, right now, I'm like, man, I need to start like buy some different equipment or something like that, and kind of come out, like break my mold a little bit.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about earlier, like change is hard, and it's like, at this point, it's like, my brain is like, dude, you lost 60 pounds. Like, fucking keep doing what you're doing, man. You don't need to worry about this, know, but the other end of me is like, no, I know that I need to pay, like, this stuff is it's still not easy, right? I mean, you don't get, like, some days you work out, you're like, yeah, that was fun, but it's still not easy. But it's definitely way easier than it was 60 pounds ago. And so at this point, it's like, I need to do more things that suck. So like usually when I'm working out and I do some new exercise or any exercise, if I hate doing that one, that's probably the one I need to do more.
I mean, dude, for you almost like need to be fueled by the mystery of progress. You need to, like, for you knowing at this point that what you're doing is working, for you to add some different exercises or different pieces of equipment and challenge yourself, at the minimum, it's probably not going to make you worse. And if anything, it's probably going to make you better. You froze for a sec. You're back.
Yeah, you froze it. So you're like, it was probably gonna, and then I don't know what happened.
At the minimum, Yeah, at the minimum, it's probably going to make you better. And worst case scenario, you don't really like it and you just try something different. But yeah, you have to be fueled by that mystery of progress, because you know the results of what you're doing now. And even though it's working, who knows what more you can do. And this is like the mythology of start moving forward, which is really kind of the motto behind Dialed Health, which is it's not about it's about continually choosing to move forward no matter where you're at progress wise. You know, it's taking that little extra edge. So for you, adding one new movement to your exercise next week could be that little bit better that sticks with you. So I would encourage you to try it. And you know, even though you know it's working, it's like there's a mystery to even more progress that's out there. And you gotta chase it, man.
And I tend to do things like what I've been doing throughout this, you know, at this point, it's been about 9 months that I've been doing this now, is continually making even the exercises that I'm doing harder in some way. So like, I don't know what the hell that thing's called. It's like a half yoga ball, half freaking piece of plastic that you can stand on. What's that thing called?
It's called a Bosu ball. And this will stick with you. It's called a Bosu ball because it stands for both sides up. Bosu.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Hopefully I remember that. So like somewhere along the line, I'm like, all right, well, I'm standing here doing like, I don't know, like shoulder presses or something like that, you know, just like, you know, rip, 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 you know, arms up and down. Like I'm cheering for those of you guys that are listening. And basically at some point I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get one of those and I'm going to stand on it while I'm doing that exercise. So then my core needs to be, you know, trying to keep me balanced. And at the same time I'm doing that, you know, where it's like, oh, I'm going to do that shoulder press. And then I'm going to make myself do a squat on the Bosu ball. And then, you know, now that's the new set, you know? And so it's stuff like that along the way where it's okay, continually just building on what you're already doing and just making it a little harder and a little harder. And so like when I first started out, and I'd said like on my videos, like, hey, my workouts are 30 minutes and 30 minutes is how long it took for the most simple part of the exercise, you know? And now it's like an hour. And it's not an hour of like standing around freaking like watching the clock. It's like, okay, in between any set is you get 60 seconds. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and I give myself 2 minutes in between groups of sets because, hey, I need to adjust the bench. I need to like change the weights. I need to whatever, you know, open the freaking door. I don't know. You know what I mean? So, but like, and I'm explaining this in a way that, you know, some people that are probably curious about what I'm doing as well. Like that's how I'm doing it. I'm not like just coming out into the garage with my weight bench and just like, you know, hey, I'm going to do a set. I'm going to sit here and listen to a song. I'm going to do a set. No, I'm like trying to keep my heart rate up. I'm trying to keep it sucking. And because that's the way that you make progress. It's like, if you were to go do a big 5,000 foot climb, but you stopped every 500 feet and took a 15-minute break, like 5,000 feet of climbing is not going to suck at all. Like, you know what I mean?
Great comparison. Yeah, I love that comparison. And I gotta say too, so the way you leveled up your workout was referring to the complexity. So you're making it more complex by adding a secondary movement, linking a couple of movements together, or having like a less stable surface, which is definitely a way to progress a workout. But you could also too, and I'm sure you're doing this, but you could just go heavier. Or you could just change the rep scheme, obviously. So I would say too, for people listening, you know, there is a really, there's a great time. There's time in your exercise to go just genuinely heavy, have the movement be extremely simple and just full on grunt it out. And then there are times to do the more complex exercises, get on an unstable surface, you know, mix up a couple of movements together. And truthfully, like there are periodized phases you could go through to do those in a way that's going to build a perfect base and then lead you to a peak for a race. But also, if you are looking to be kind of just optimizing your health and fitness, have some fun, and you just know you're going to stay consistent, doing a little bit of all of that all the time isn't really a bad idea if it's enough to keep the excitement up, to have, you know, to work out as frequently as you want to. Like, to be honest, I have to film so much content, and I can't, and create programs and everything, I can't really stick to a program. I think the longest I've gotten through one of my programs was like 6 weeks, because I realized, I'm like, dude, I can't just keep filming the same workouts for my Instagram story. It's just going to get dull for people. And a lot of my stuff will repeat for a certain amount of time, and then you switch it up when you're in the next phase. So yeah, it's interesting. Like I always tell a lot of people, like, don't overcomplicate it, because although there is perfect by the book science, periodization, all that stuff, that's an option. It's not the only way to get fit. And like, dude, if you saw my workouts, it's exactly what we're kind of talking about. I'll do everything from just a heavy trap bar deadlift to like the most complex kettlebell flow you've ever seen, you know, and it'll be like the same workout, and I just don't miss workouts. And that's the most important thing, honestly.
Yeah. I definitely need to learn some more. I need to spend some time just watching YouTube and figure out some like kettlebell routines, because it seems like they're pretty popular with a lot of personal trainers. And usually if that's the case, it's because they're effective, and it's not something that I've really done a lot of working out with in the past. So I definitely need to like, I just want to learn it, you know, like, oh, okay, that's how you do this. So I could throw those in or whatever, but.
And the first learning thing with kettlebells is that you can't ever call them a kettlebell. If you call them a kettlebell, you're automatically disqualified from using the kettlebells. So that's strike one. I mean, you got that out of the way. I'm warning you right now.
All right.
No,
I don't even know if I said ball or bell. I'm like, what the fuck did I say? I don't even know.
I heard ball, but then again, I have this like, it's like this built-in alarm in my head from all the years. But no, it's, dude, they're really fun. They're really effective. And for riders, when we're talking about focusing on movement more than a specific muscle group, as a general rule of thumb, I mean, dude, you could link 5 different exercises without putting the kettlebell down, and the amount of quality work you can get in a short amount of time is almost, in my opinion, it's like unparalleled. And you can go single arm, and every time you do something single arm, your core is firing like crazy. It's just so fun. So I'd be happy to help you with getting rolling on that, man. Yeah.
I was looking at some of the stuff that you had on your Instagram, your webpage and stuff, and a lot of it's like what I call, and this is the wrong word, but like calisthenics, or like prison exercises, right? So like, to me, that's like stuff that you can do that really works you out, that you don't need to use, like, you don't need to go to a gym for. And to me, I personally enjoy working out that way, because I feel like I just feel like you don't need to have a bunch of equipment. Like there's a few pieces that make maybe working out maybe a lot more effective, but I don't feel like you need to go out and buy, you know, some like $5,000, like, has all the exercises on it, you know. Like, all I've been using all this time is 2 dumbbells and an adjustable bench and some medicine balls, you know, and that's it. And the rest of it's like the kind of stuff that, you know, like I was just talking about, you know, like you're doing planks, you're doing flutter kicks, you're doing push-ups, you're doing, you know, whatever it is, like body weight, like what I joke around, I always call like prison exercises, right?
Yeah.
So with all of that being said, though, I do want to bring up this question that somebody threw up in the chat.
Oh, sick.
So Bikesum says, what's the minimum or maximum workout time needed for targeting new movements without wrecking yourself to the point of not being able to do more the next day?
That's such a good question. So this is what's up, Bikesum? This is like a volume question. So if you're targeting a new movement, I'm guessing you're talking about maybe a new squat variation that you're going to put in your exercise. Kind of like you mentioned in your workouts, how you'll add a new exercise kind of when you feel like you're ready for it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if you're doing a new workout, especially if you feel like it's tough, I would stick to like 8 to 10 reps and not do any more than 3 sets for the first day. And I would start with the lightest weight possible. There are some exercises that require you to do a certain amount of weight. I mean, you'll learn that with kettlebells too, that you can't just grab the lightest weight, because you need that the gravity to swing it and move it. And there's some other movements like that as well. So I would say pick the minimum amount of weight that you can effectively do the movement, and don't do more than 3 sets at 8 to 10 reps for the first workout or the first time in your workout, because that is basically the minimum for you to probably feel it out and get a good idea of form. And it's also not too much to where you're going to be totally wrecked. And you're better to err on the side of caution, because trust me, dude, I've done Bulgarian split squats and exercises that I've tried. Even lately, I just filmed something that made me so sore because my angle was bad and I kept having to redo the set and I was wrecked. And so I would say err on the side of caution, do what you can the first day to learn the form. And then after you feel the effects on your body, come back into it and up the ante a little bit if you can.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Yeah, no, it was definitely. And I think it's one of those things where, everybody's kind of, how do you know how much to do? I know whenever it's like, it seems like the day that I want to do 4,000 feet of climbing is always the day after I did a bunch of lunges.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you get out there and you're like, why did I do that yesterday? Or you didn't really think about it. You're like, oh, I did this workout yesterday, but I didn't really feel burned. I didn't really feel burned this morning when I got up. But as soon as I start pedaling, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm out of it, So
yeah, I find that, dude, bikers really, sorry to cut you off there too.
Yeah,
but
go for it.
Dude, bike riders do like to work their legs. I know that when I was riding again more, my favorite workouts were leg workouts, and I would create the sickest leg workouts. Seriously, just like disgusting, like everything you want to do on a leg day. Yeah. And I'm doing a bunch of volume. I mean, down to 4 different calf raise variations. Like I've done just workouts like that, and they're fun. And in the workout, it's great. And I love that feeling of my legs just being smoked. But like you said, dude, oh my gosh, your ride's going to suck for the next 3-4 days, most likely. And I find that with riders, they have that in them where they do like to suffer a little bit, and they do like the feeling of working their legs. So they tend to go too leg heavy in the gym, which, for a normal person would be a great idea, but not for you as a bike rider. It's a weird balance.
I personally try not to do too much to my legs because I feel like I'm trying to save them for like the ride, or like I feel like I need to be paying attention to all these other muscle groups, because obviously if I'm riding this much, those things are doing okay. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I think that's a good approach to it in general, if you had to generalize it. Yeah, because you want to do enough, like we said, to stay activated with your legs. You got to use your legs. You want to still do knee dominant movements and lunges, but again, it's like minimal dose. And like for you, having a movement where, say your focus is your biceps, for example, that day, just an example, but you're like, I'm going to do a lunge to bicep, and then that combo movement is the only leg stuff I'll do that day. That's a good sweet spot to hit.
Yeah. So, what is it? What are like some key things that you would recommend to somebody who right now just rides? They love riding, but they want to up their game, and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to start working out. Maybe they don't work it out at all. I think there's a lot of guys out there that are like that, and instead of just picking another day to go ride, in my opinion, if you added in some kind of workout, you're probably going to get more out of it than just another ride. Like to me, like the extra riding, it makes you like better at turning. It makes you better at pushing up through that climb maybe, or it makes you better at that downhill technical stuff. But I can personally say for me, when I'm working out, that it definitely like makes huge changes in how well I ride compared to if I was just add another day of riding.
Yeah, it's good to bring up for those people. The first thing I would say to those people is to redefine what they think of as strength training, because a lot of people think, oh man, I don't really want to start strength training, because in their head, they see barbell, they see heavyweight, they see full on CrossFit competition, and they don't realize, it's funny, I said this on another podcast recently, but they don't realize like strength training is doing a plank in front of your TV in your underwear. Yeah. While your kid's like trying to climb on your back or something like that is strength training also. So you have to realize that, for you to take the time to literally touch your toe 10 times, do 3 rounds of a 30-second plank and then 10 body weight squats. That could be the start of your strength training, and it will have a benefit on your riding. And even if you don't want to subtract a ride, then your option obviously is just to add some volume, which could be good. But there's a point where I'm really I'm slipping on the term, but it's like negative returns, or there's a point where you ride so much, a little more riding, like you said, is not going to do more than something a little different would. So I would say you don't have to say no to your rides, but honestly, most of the people that I work with, they are looking for a time saving. So sometimes even missing a ride, but getting a really quality day of strength training in is nice on their schedule. There's a lot of other reasons to do it as well. But I would say, dude, find that minimum dose. Don't feel like you need to go do something insane. And this is like shameless plug, but this is why I make this stuff. It's because I love seeing it help people, but I have body weight core workouts on my website that you press play and do it in real time with me in 25 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And so it could be as simple as that. And like just committing to take 2 chunks of time per week, even if it's 20 minutes twice a week, space it out and just be like, all right, I'm either going to be smart and follow Derek's videos or I'm just going to wing it and do whatever. They're both a better option. I would suggest to take some form of training, like get something that's packaged and formatted for you, because for one, you're going to learn a lot more about yourself, like what works and what doesn't. But also not having direction sucks. It sucks to like stand somewhere in your house and be like, okay, what the heck do I do? So I would really suggest to get something to follow, and then just commit 2 20-minute chunks a week at the minimum, space them out, don't do body weight, and keep it simple. And it is going to have an impact. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing something that you didn't before. So like, as soon as you do that, like your body's going to be like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now, so it's definitely good that way. I think like you said, just commit and do something. And I think at the very least, whatever that something is, it'll get easier. And I feel like because you're a mountain biker, you must have some sort of like competitive nature to you. Otherwise, like mountain biking wouldn't be as much fun. You know what I mean? Like in general, like most mountain bikers are kind of that way. And so as whatever it is that you're committing to gets easier, you're going to keep upping the game. You're going to be like, oh, well, I can do 25 minutes because it's not that bad now, or whatever. And I think the key is, though, definitely like just pick something and then do that. Like where you see these people that are like, I did 100 squats every day for a month, and this is the change. And it's like, yeah, of course you're going to see a change because you were never doing that before. So it's something to take advantage of. They call it like quote unquote beginner gains. But there is a point. And the only reason I caution saying this is because, like we mentioned, you can overdo the leg stuff and have bad rides because of it. But there's a point where you could almost do anything and feel progress. Like if we look to the very extreme, I don't have studies on this. This is just speculation. But if you took a full on mountain biker and just had them do curls and tricep extensions twice a week, and they'd probably feel better and ride better than they did beforehand. And that is like the most minimum thing of almost what you don't want to do. Like that is like, of all the things to prioritize in your strength training, that's probably not it. And you're still getting a benefit from it. There's like real beginner gains, and then also you can ride that for 6 months to a year before your body really adapts. And, it really becomes more about marginal gains opposed to throwing 5 pounds extra on the bar every week or whatever it may be. So enjoy the beginner gains. I mean, you deserve it. You starting out, you're getting going. It's not always going to be like that, but that's a bonus of making the choice to start. Absolutely. What supplements do you think that are kind of a must for people, like BCAAs or like, I don't know, taking creatine or making sure you have a whey protein or like anything like that in particular that you try to point people towards?
Yeah, I really do suggest everyone to have a protein powder on hand. And That is really out of convenience. And also most people who track their protein realize that they're not taking in as much protein as they probably should, especially as athletes. And I will say, for anyone who is trying to lose some body fat, you need to be on the little higher side of protein. So 0.8 grams to 1 pound per gram, 1 gram per pound of body weight, because it helps
so
really
per pound of body weight. That's pretty interesting to me. That's a lot of protein.
Yeah, it's on the higher side. That is if you are for going for weight loss. And a lot of it is because of how satiating protein is. But also,
it makes sense.
Yeah, like it fills you up, but also it helps you hold on to as much muscle mass as possible when your body's in a deficit, where it's technically stripping away your muscle to use it as a fuel source, along with the fat and the carbs and everything like that. So, protein is really good to have on hand, but it's also very convenient. If you have a protein powder and all of a sudden you don't have, meats or eggs or something in the morning, you can mix it in your oatmeal and now you have more of a complete breakfast. So the convenience there, having it at a shaker, I recommend protein for everyone, whether it's whey protein, casein protein. I eat vegan protein just because whey doesn't really agree with my stomach. But find a protein powder that works for you and just have it on stock. Other than that, I would definitely suggest some form of a super greens powder or a multivitamin. I think honestly, the super greens powders, I'll just tell you from my experience. Technically, when you look at the micronutrients, they're almost like the same thing, like what you're getting from one or the other. But when I've taken a multivitamin in the past, I've never felt any different. I've never gotten less sick. And I've taken them, 6 months at a time, whatever. I've done this with fish oil also. I just never.
You didn't get smarter all of a sudden. You weren't like doing math like there was no tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, none of that happened. But when I've taken a super greens powder, or I drink a supplement now, Kyoku, which is a protein superfood blend, that's I feel it more, like this feeling of energy that you really get when you start consistently eating healthy, and just more greens, more fruits and veggies. So I'd recommend a super greens powder, maybe a multivitamin. But I also would recommend creatine for everybody, men, women, weight loss, weight gain, weight maintenance, whatever. Creatine is like one of the cheapest supplements you can take. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, it doesn't really help your riding. But think about it this way. If you are strength training, it indirectly helps your riding, because if you're having better strength workouts because of your creatine, think about the strength that you're getting that's going to your bike from those strength workouts.
And my understanding with creatine, please correct me if I'm wrong, my creatine basically pumps more water into your muscles so that your muscles have basically more water to help repair themselves. Is that kind of like the easy way, or am I off completely?
You're not off completely.
Yeah. Okay.
What it's really doing is pumping your body with, it's filling up your body's phosphocreatine stores. So what that means is your body's short-term, most quick, explosive energy source that only lasts for like 10 seconds. It's ATP. So adenosine triphosphate. And basically your body uses that for the most explosive versions of a lot of workouts. Now, when you take creatine, it refills those stores, so it's more readily available. So typically you have that fuel source more readily throughout your workouts, especially if you dose it daily. And so it's never really out of your system as much. And if you don't load it like they used to do, kind of like back in the day. I remember doing that. They start taking, like a normal one dose for a full-size male is like 5 grams per day. But people would start taking up to like, it'd be like 1 week you're taking 10 grams a day and then 20 grams a day, up to like 35, 40 grams a day. And that's when your water retention gets out of control. You do start looking crazy puffy, because pulling more water into your muscle, I will say it is a result of the creatine being more readily available in your body. But if you dose it in a way, like I only take 3 grams a day now, because I don't notice a difference between 3 and 5 grams. And dude, I don't retain water because of it. Honestly, what's funny too is like a lot of people I've heard, and this is me being a little bit cynical, but like people will tell me I don't take creatine because I retain water. But they're the same people who will eat cookies right before bed and wake up all bloated. I mean, it's like, okay, you didn't get any benefit from that. At least creatine, if for some reason you took too much and it retained some water, yeah, maybe it could do it. So you weren't off. It is a result of what happens, but the real thing that creatine does is replace those ATP stores in your body, and it just helps you be more explosive in your workouts. But also, if you're not even doing it for workouts, it's really good for people like honestly later in life, and the effects it has on like Alzheimer's and just a lot of really positive things for your brain. And because again, it's so cheap for creatine monohydrate powder, you should just buy single ingredient powder like that. It's kind of a no-brainer. I would just say
I would take it, I'd just mix it in with my whey protein or something like that and just be like, oh, it's all part of there, and it doesn't change the taste because it has like no taste to it. So it's like, all right, whatever, just chuck it in there. yeah. So those would be the top three. I would say have a protein powder on hand, start taking creatine monohydrate, and have a good superfood blend or multivitamin. Right on, man. I'm gonna look up a superfood. Yeah, blend. I definitely don't have one of those.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I
want to make sure your lady's not freaking all pissed off at you. So we're getting pretty close to wrapping up here. I just want to ask real quick for anybody that's interested. Obviously, your site is dialedhealth.com. That's in the show more. If you're listening to it as a podcast, it should be listed there somewhere as well. But if not, go to dialedhealth.com. You're on Instagram. You're on Facebook. You have a YouTube channel as well. I saw. What kind of cost are people looking at to be part of Dialed Health?
It's less than $20 a month.
Oh, that's really good, dude. So.
Yeah, thanks. And basically a membership gives you access to all the programs and all the workouts. And we load up new workouts. I would say honestly, like bi-weekly, and then programs are usually monthly or bi-monthly. So there's a lot of new content coming out on those on the website. And dude, there's like I think there's like 4 years worth of programming options on there now. But there's everything from full gym access all the way down to no equipment access. So there's a lot of people who have been through multiple programs, and it depends on your equipment accessibility and everything like that. So there's options for everybody, but yeah, membership gets you access to everything.
I think that's really cool that you have workouts that people can do that have no equipment, because right now, anybody that has tried to buy anything gym wise in the last like year have found out that COVID has everything like ridiculously far sold out, or people are like selling stuff online for like 5 times the price that it normally costs. I wanted to buy this Bowflex curl bar, like a regular barbell,
like an easy curl bar.
Yeah, it's like it's
like bent.
Yeah, it's bent, and then they have a flat one too. But basically, it has like all the adjustable weights on it, so you can just like turn a little dial and you can go to like 90 pounds, or turn the dial and go to 10 pounds or something like that. So you don't have like a bunch of free weights laying around. So I wanted to buy this thing. I was like, all right, got my taxes done. I'm gonna pick this thing up. The shipping time said 4 months. So it's like obviously I'm like, all right, 4 months will go. I'm just going to buy it and wait. But just to give people an idea, like things are really kind of sold out and hard to come. So having an option to just get started and get started with nothing at all, that's really cool that you have that on there.
And if I could add on there too, along those lines, what I do have a lot of people have done actually is like they'll start with a no equipment program. And I have 2 of them available on the website. They're each 2 months long. So a lot of times people will start with a no equipment program. They'll place that adjustable dumbbell set order. And by the time it comes in, they're actually ready to start the dumbbell only program that I have. There you go. So there's little things like that where they're like, okay, I got a kettlebell on order. After this phase of this, I'll go to your kettlebell workouts. So it's cool because people, because of the response of COVID and stuff, they're slowly like building into the gym set. But because there's programs from like, no equipment to single pieces of equipment, they're like working their way up to the full gym set, which is kind of sick. Or just what I see from members through the website. It's just such a trip. And it's like with the bike industry too, not to go too far off on a tangent, but it's on one hand, you're so happy that the industry is doing well and you want to see all these new riders. Like we all want the industry to grow, but it's like, dude, for everybody that's been in it, and when you can't get that part that you should have just been able to walk into a shop and grab real quick, it is so frustrating. So it's a very double-edged sword,
Yeah, you
Same
walk
thing
into
with
the shop right now and try to get some brake pads, dude. Good luck. You know, like, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, guess I'll buy new brakes. At least they'll come with pads. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, for real, man. It's funny.
Right on, man. I like to ask people too, as part of the podcast, are there any other YouTube channels that you like to watch, whether it's fitness, it's mountain biking, it's some guy underwater basket weaving, anything you like to take a look at?
Yeah. Oh man. So I spend a lot of time on the indoor trainer at home.
Uh-huh.
And so lately I've been building like the sickest YouTube playlist. Yeah. So let me think. So obviously it's like the normal mountain bike channels, you know, Remy, Metalier. I have like a good mix of fitness and biking stuff. Let me think. Okay. So I'll tell you my favorite YouTube channel is this guy Fernwee, who's actually in the Dialed fam.
Uh-huh.
And so if you type in Fernwee, Fernee or Wee, he's a road cyclist from the Netherlands, but his quality of video is like second to none in my opinion. Sick riding videos. They just make you want to get out and pedal. He does a lot of grapple stuff now. So big shout out to Fernwee. I would check him out. There's a guy, Nick Bear Fitness, and he owns Bear Performance Supplements. He's training for triathlons right now, and he's actually a bodybuilder who's turned into an endurance athlete. So he's like going through the process of learning all of these different like endurance things. Like you watch him get on Zwift for the first time or do an Ironman or a marathon or whatever. Yeah. And the way his body is like adapting to it, he's losing all this muscle because he's gone from being a full-on juice head gorilla to becoming this endurance athlete. And so it's been a really cool thing to watch. So those would probably be the two that maybe your audience hasn't heard of. So yeah, awesome. Check out Fernwee, check out Nick Bear Fitness. Those are both pretty cool.
Sweet, man. I appreciate it, dude. I've had a great time chatting with you. We're gonna have to carve out some other time in the future so we can get you back on here, because you have a plethora of knowledge, and I think that it was really fun talking. And I think that hopefully people got a little idea what Dialed Health is and go over to your website and check it out, because sounds like it's doing good things, man.
Thanks, Robert. Dude, I really appreciate you having me on. And again, props on the show, dude. It was really fun talking to you. I think you have seriously a gift for conversation in general. You have the gift of gab.
Right.
No, seriously, man. It's been, for a lot of people knowing, like we've gone back and forth before online, but we haven't actually really hung out and talked. And I feel like we're buddies already, man. So thanks for making me feel so welcome. It was fun.
Yeah, for sure, dude. I'm definitely going to go swing by the site and take a look at it, man. It sounds like there's something on there that can help me out. And at this point, I got 20 more pounds to go to hit my goal. So I'm gonna go hit it up, check it out. Everybody that's dialed in or listening on a podcast, whatever you're doing, maybe you're sitting on your trainer right now, just spinning, listening to this thing. Right on. Thanks for coming by. Do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't subscribe to this channel yet, do it now. That'd be a good idea. There's a button around here somewhere you can hit. If you're on a podcast and you're like, man, I like listening to this podcast, I want this guy to keep doing it, do me a favor, write a review. That would make me really happy, because I like to go read them, and I'm just assuming that makes like the podcast gods happy. And then I don't know, the dump truck load of money will come. Boom, I'll be a millionaire. Then I won't do this stuff anymore. Wait a minute. Anyways, I appreciate all you guys out there. Thanks for tuning in. And remember, it only takes a bike to be a biker. So get out and be one.